Hello everybody, this is Trying to A-Level, and today we will be studying theatre studies into the character of Creon. Just a small disclaimer, I'm also a student, so not all of the information is necessarily going to be the most correct, but I'm going to try, and so will you, so let's just see how this goes. Enjoy. So, who exactly is Creon? Well, from the Sophoclean text that we know, he is the uncle of Antigone and Ismene, but also Eteocles and Polynices, which we'll go into more detail into their relationships later on. He is also the brother of Jocasta, who was the wife of Oedipus, who means that he is the brother-in-law to Oedipus. He's also a father. He has 4 sons and 3 daughters that we know of, so he will be quite a fatherly figure, and that does add to his character and his mindset later on. He is also the relatively new king of Thebes, which we'll look at about later of how this came about. He's also the primary antagonist to the character of Antigone, but this does not mean he is a villain. It just means he's a person that Antigone necessarily doesn't like. But let's face it, who really does Antigone like, apart from Antigone? And another important fact is that he's respected by the chorus, and this is shown in many of the chorus little speeches that they do. And a lot of the information that we get about Creon is shown through the chorus. But to understand more of his character, I would like to go into his background before the Antigone story. I know you might all be thinking, what am I doing? This doesn't necessarily matter, but I feel that to understand his character truly we need to know all of his story, not just the snippet that we see in the 3rd play of the Oedipus trilogy. So we'll take a look into that. So, in Oedipus Rex or Oedipus Carthae, when Laius is the ruler, he goes to visit the Oracle of Delphi for a second time once Oedipus is a grown man, but they still haven't met at this point. He passes the rule on to Creon. This means that either Creon is the only man that is fit for the job, which means that the audience should take a liking to him, or that he is close enough to Laius and Laius trusts him with the rule, which means that it's kind of a positive point on both views. And after Laius gets killed, Creon is still left to rule with no other option but to do so. And at this point, the Sphinx arrives, which is a massive problem for Creon. He doesn't really know how to solve this. And for anybody to defeat the Sphinx, he offers the throne and Jocasta's hand in marriage as a prize. This audience could like this idea, especially in an ancient Greek sense, as it seems like a noble thing to do on behalf of the kingdom. However, modern audiences could think that this is rather sexist, as women are seen as prizes rather than people. But that's a controversial opinion. When Oedipus does eventually defeat the Sphinx, and he takes over his rule and marries Jocasta, which is kind of rude because it's his mum, but that's not really important in this. Anyway, we are told that Creon remains a very close relationship with Oedipus. This can either be symbolic of the fact that they are related, or just that Creon is a very good friend. It could also be viewed that Creon could just want to be with him for the purpose of power, but it can be thought of either way. There's a lot of either way thinking in ancient Greek tragedy. Still, you just gotta go with it, make your own opinions. Quite a few years later, when all the plagues and the problems start in Thebes, Oedipus goes to visit Tiresias to see what the problem is. Tiresias tells Oedipus that he is the problem, and in retaliation to this, in a fit of anger, Oedipus goes to Creon, accusing him of conspiring against him. In response to this, Creon says that he really doesn't want to be ruler, and so there is no real reason for him to conspire against him, which is kind of understandable, seeing as he was so quick to give up the throne before. However, this could just be him being quite cowardly and trying to escape Oedipus's wrath. But you eventually can pity Creon, thinking he's been a good thing and he's taken the butt of Oedipus's anger. And when Oedipus does discover the truth about his true heritage and that it's very incestuous and horrible, he puts Creon into power and gives up the rule. This means that he could still trust Creon, even though after just arguing with him like minutes before. But he is still a good friend, and we know that he must be capable to lead the city if Oedipus trusts him with this. Oedipus then requests to be exiled to Creon, as he's the new king, and Creon does grant this out of pure pity for Oedipus, but only after he consorts with the gods. This means that he does value the god's opinion, as could be contrasted in the play Antigone when he argues against law versus the gods. So it adds a lot of layers to his character and his mindset. After this, we have the war between Eteocles and Polynices. There are different stories about how this comes about, but from what we know, Eteocles and Polynices have agreed to have alternate leadership of the kingdom. From what we know, Eteocles refused to alternate with Polynices, and Creon appears to be very close either as another joint ruler or a very close second-hand man. What we do know as well is that Creon fights in the war alongside Eteocles defending the kingdom, as do his 4 sons. We learn that Creon has lost 3 swords in the war, names I can't really pronounce, so I'm not going to try and offend any ancient Greeks out there. Anyway, this means that he's only left with Haman, meaning that he will be much more protective of his last remaining son, but this also shows why he's so pitted against Polynices, as he has effectively killed his 3 sons, which no father would want or approve. What we do absolutely know is Eteocles and Polynices are both killed in the battle, leaving Creon alone as the sole winner and the king of Thebes. This means that he is a country that has just came out of a massive state of anarchy, and he has now got to immediately organise this, meaning that he must be very tough, very swift, and also quite just in his actions, and has to make sure that he is justified. Now we're all caught up to the beginning of Antigone, and this is the moment where the play starts. After the brief scene between Antigone and Ismene arguing, Creon enters, announcing in a very long speech that because Polynices attacked the city, he will not be given burial rites and will just be left out, to rot and be eaten by wild animals, which, as horrible as it sounds, needs to be shown, as he doesn't want any more traitors in the kingdom, which is a fair enough point if you think about what the trauma that he and the kingdom have just gone through. Almost immediately after this, Creon learns from the guards that someone has buried Polynices. Creon gets very angry, and this is consistent with his character. He seems very short-tempered, and he demands that the guard must discover who did it, and threatens him with death if he can't find this information out. Soon enough, the guard brings in Antigone, reporting that she was the one who buried Polynices, despite Creon's decree. Creon does give her an opportunity to save herself by asking, "Did you hear of what I said?" kind of prompting her to go. If she said that she didn't, then he could be less severe on her. However, she is very stubborn and says that she did absolutely know what Creon said, and thus chose to go against this, which is kind of crazy, but they all seem that way, to be fair. He then argues with Antigone over the virtue of law, which Creon argues for, against the virtue of the gods and family, which Antigone is for. Also, Ismene does join in at some point, but it's not really relevant to Creon's character, aside from the part that he threatens to kill them both and eventually does decree this. However, he will take this back later on Ismene's part, but it's still very hard on Antigone. The next scene that we see Creon in is when he's trying to justify what he's just done to Haman, his son, his only son, after the other 3 have died, so this makes him very protective over him. He tries to discuss the values of the family and how he can very easily get a new wife, which seems very anti-feminist, but that was what ancient Greece was at the time, so it's not necessarily out of the normal that can be seen by modern audiences. Rather understandably and rationally, as he is set to be Antigone's wife, Haman tries to defend Antigone, telling his father that even though he is a great ruler, he may need to take some advice, and that the kingdom is talking about his decision and it may not necessarily be quite right in the eyes of the kingdom. To this, Creon takes it very much the wrong way, thinking that his son is trying to defy him and being very much on the side of Polynices, which Creon somewhat understandably would be angry about, as it seems to him that Haman is taking the side of Polynices, which to him is very morally wrong, as Polynices effectively killed Haman's brothers, and in effect Haman's brothers. As is common in the Sophoclean tragedy, this is going to be the last time that he does see Haman, when Haman storms off telling his dad that he will never be seeing him again. Creon at this time doesn't really know that Haemon is going to go through with what he's saying, and that the next time Creon is going to see him, he won't be dying. And this is a very tragic way to leave things between him and his son. The next time we see Creon is when he is escorting Antigone to her death, which isn't going to be necessarily an execution, but he's going to leave her in a cave to die. After Antigone leaves the stage, Tiresias, the prophet, enters. Tiresias and Creon obviously have a very good relationship, Tiresias having given Creon advice in the past. This obviously has to be quite good advice that he's given him, as Creon is now in one of the most privileged positions anybody can be in at the time, which is king, even though he's in a morally hard place. In politics and in status, he is the highest that you can be. But you can also see that Creon very much respects Tiresias, being a very well-known character in Greek mythology. The relationship between Creon and Tiresias also seems to be one that is quite fatherly. This is evident in Creon's speech, and also that Tiresias has given him much good advice. He is also, and that seems to be the case between. Tiresias is very blunt with Creon. Tiresias says pretty much that unless Creon changes his mind, everybody is going to die. Creon doesn't at first seem to appreciate this, and he very much rejects this and refuses to obey Tiresias. Tiresias leaves Creon, saying that he will suffer and die, as will those around him. Creon thus continues to sort of battle with his choices and discusses this with the chorus, and at their urging, he then changes his mind, saying that he will release Antigone and see that Polyneices will be buried, and actually seems to be quite, not the most, but a fairly rational character in terms of all of the characters there, because he is willing to change his mind. However, before he can release Antigone, the messenger reports that on his way up there, he has witnessed Antigone committing suicide, and also his son, after attempting to kill Creon himself. On his return as well, he is also told that his wife, Eurydice, has also killed herself on receiving the news by the messenger, and Creon is distraught, and as is common in tragic plays, he sort of revises everything that he's done and realises he's made a very terrible mistake, but this is too late. He then requests to be led off stage so he can go away to die. Oh, that was a hell of a lot to go, so we'll take a small break here, but just remember, you won't have to remember all of that in exact detail, but as long as you've got the main gist of it, we can get through in exams. Hopefully. You have my support. And in order to tackle the acting question, we have to understand Creon's character. This is almost more important than what he actually does, but whatever you think, Anyway, he may seem to be pitted against Antigone in her beliefs of the honour of the family and the gods above all else, but his behaviour at times does suggest otherwise. He aggressively argues that the honour of the family is very highly regarded to Haemon, and he also believes that the decrees that he states are consistent with the laws of the gods and with the best interests of his people, rather than just himself. Creon is also shown to be one of the few characters who does listen to people, but only those that he respects, and even though he does reject Tiresias' advice at first, he does end up changing his course, as he learns of what will happen to his family, and he's very fearful of that, and tragically he is too late for this, but the fact is he does change his mind and must be a rational person because of this. The character of Creon of Oedipus is in some ways different and in some ways quite similar to the character of Creon shown in Antigone. In Oedipus, he appears to look to the will of the gods above the eyes of the state, which is shown when Oedipus says that he wants to be exiled. Creon first waits for the approval of the gods to carry out this order once he has become king. This may have changed in Antigone, as he overlooks the will of the gods to do what he must in the eyes of the law. This may be because of inconsistency with character, however this seems unlikely, so rationally we must jump to thinking that this either is the effect of the war that has taken toll on Creon, the effects of power that may have got to his head, or even just old age. Some important points about Creon. In Oedipus, Creon appears to be a cool-minded and cool-headed character. However, in Antigone, the lack of this appears to be his downfall. This seems to be very intentional dramatic irony, which is very common in Greek tragedy. Furthermore, Creon's laws also seem to reflect his own character. At times they can seem very harsh, and at others they seem quite reasonable. Also, in Antigone, he reflects the traits of Oedipus quite often, even though this is the man who he condemns multiple times in multiple speeches. Firstly, he accuses everyone of conspiring against him, mainly Antigone, Ismene, and Haman, but he also disbelieves the words of Tiresias at first. However, both characters eventually change their minds, and this is too late. Furthermore, his paranoia also leads to his downfall, as it did to Oedipus. Some of Creon's negative characteristics eventually seem to become positive. However, the reverse of this is also true. Creon's strong lead and dedication to the law seem to be exactly what Thebes is in need of after the war. However, this very soon later appears to bring about tragedy to the kingdom, for everyone, not just the ones involved. Finally, Creon's downfall becomes symbolic of tragedies that occur when the laws of man attempt to compete with the ancient law of the gods. This is a recurring theme in not only Sophoclean tragedy, but most tragedies that are seen. Quick question, as if you couldn't get enough in exams, but anyway, is Creon a villain? Yes or no? The answer to this is of course not. Creon is not a villain, even though he may be an antagonist. Above all else, he seems to be the true epitome of a Sophoclean hero, even though he isn't in this case. Some of us may disagree with this, thinking that we do hate Creon, he's a rubbish character. However, examiners don't really care about this, you just have to know that he isn't a villain, just an antagonist. Here's a timeline that I've made of Creon's actions through Oedipus and Antigone. If you want to screenshot or read it, just pause it now and we continue with the video later. So I'm very sorry about the moving slides, I can't really control this, just have a rubbish movie maker. But anyway, if you can tell, this is a sort of graph of the actions that Creon has taken, and these are the audience responses to it. In the blue you can see the ancient Greek responses, which seem to be a lot more positive as time goes on, and in the green is the modern audience reactions, which seem to go far less positive, far quicker. If you want to pause this, you can read this a bit further. All the events match up to the timeline, and you can try and read the little red writing, though it may not really matter so much, just if you get the overall gist of what audience think of this. Oh, we've almost finished now, but also, really importantly, we have to know how this ties into exams. Exams will, in general, ask for a portrayal of Creon in two different scenes. Personally, I would choose two very different sections which show contrast in Creon's character. My main examples would be when Haman talks with Creon and how Creon is at first very gentle with him, but then it gets increasingly angry, and this epitomizes just how mad Creon can get, especially with the sun. I would contrast this with his talk with Tiresias, as he is very respectful of Tiresias, whereas he isn't really with his son. Or alternatively, we can choose his argument that he has with Antigone, where he is constantly angry pretty much, and compare this with the scene at the very end where Creon seems to have lost all strength in him and is just very quiet, very small, and the contrast can just show that he can portray two very different characters whilst remaining the same one, and show how multidimensional his character is rather than just flat. Also, justify your reasons for actions and expressions. This is important because if really real people don't tend to do things without having a reason behind it. Also, try to be realistic. To be fair, a backflip wouldn't really be appropriate during any point in this play, let alone decrease speeches or arguments. Also, remember to include details. I quite often put most of my details in speech, as this is very effective. For example, I wrote, his voice wavers as if on the brink of tears, as he says, very resentful of himself, I have destroyed everything I touched. He pauses, sighing deeply as if all the strength he once held has left him, etc., etc. You can read the rest. Oh, and we're done. thank you for watching this video. This is the briefest I could really get through Creon's basic principle and character and all of that. Anyway, thank you very much for watching. Remember to like, comment and subscribe. If you want me to cover any more topics Antigone-wise, please put that in the comments. Also, any improvements that you can put on me, just whatever, just put it down there. I'd love to hear your opinions. Anyway, thank you very much for watching. Bye bye for now.